following is a presentation of Main Street Media, your source for news, sports, and information on Main Street in Middle Tennessee. The following is a presentation of Main Street Media, your source for news, sports, and information on Main Street in Middle Tennessee.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Main Street Preps this week. I'm Russell Vannozzi, joined by Tyler Palmateer, and we've got another football field-filled episode for you today. We're going to talk about everything that we saw last week, preview some games for this coming week, and talk to Nolensville coach Paul Derrick ahead of his team's massive game against Page that may well decide the league title in that region. But first, I want to remind everybody that this podcast is sponsored by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk. Tyler, are you ready to do this?
Yeah, I'm ready, man. I can't believe there's only 3 regular season games left in this season.
I know, week 8, it's flying by here, and we've got some real fall weather, too, to do it. But let's go ahead and bring in Coach Paul Derrick, his team riding high on a 7-0 start. Paul, thanks for taking some time with us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
You bet. Of course, it's a big week for your team, hosting Page in that Region 6-5A big-time showdown there, and this is the game everybody's had circled for several weeks now. Paul, what's the atmosphere like around the locker room, around the practice field? I mean, is everybody pretty fired up for this one?
There's no question about it, man. Like you said, I think a lot of people had this game circled. Luckily, Page and both Nolensville, did what they were supposed to do, and it's going to be a big game Friday night. Everybody around Nolensville is excited. You can just tell it's a little different buzz at practice, a little different energy. So it ought to be a good one Friday night.
Hey, Paul, this is Tyler. What do you remember about last year's playoff game with Page? The ending was so chaotic with the Page taking an intentional safety, and then there was a clock debate. You guys end up with a chance to win. Was it just one of those wacky endings where everyone's head kind of just has to be on a swivel?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever been a part of a game quite like that, but it was definitely a unique ending, and we had a chance there at the end to get one last throw at the end zone. But I remember about that game was, I thought we played, well enough to win at times, and we just didn't do things, at times to finish off plays or finish off the end of the game. And then obviously Pages, it was a really good football team and went on the run they did. So I think I just remember that, we were close in that game and maybe need to do some things better if we're going to ever, get over the hump.
And looking at this year's team, you guys are putting up 41 points per game or thereabout with a talented veteran group of skill players that I'm sure a lot of other programs would love to have this kind of experience. At quarterback, you've got Kobe Walton. Running back, there's Samson Johnson. At receiver, there's Chance Fitzgerald and Dylan Northcutt and some others. What do you make of the way that those guys are maximizing their senior year and playing really well right now?
Yeah, I think they just came in extremely motivated. I think last year we were kind of a young football team, and even a lot of the juniors that played for us, it was their first time under the Friday night lights and gaining that playing experience, and then having to go through the experience of struggling at time last year. I think the combination of those two things has really helped our football team. The playing experience for obvious reasons, and then going through those struggles that kind of motivated our team to get better this off season and to kind of not want to have those same kind of feelings this year. So those guys are all playing really well. They all did a great job for us last year, and obviously having them all back, they've continued to flourish in each of their roles.
And Paul, something people maybe outside the program may not realize, that they're familiar with how good the offense has been, but your team has 11 interceptions at this point in the year with and your cornerbacks Derrick Burrows and Derrick Washington have 9 between them. What are those guys doing well, and maybe what's the secondary as a whole doing well this year?
I think they're playing well together. I think they're trusting one another to be where they're supposed to be. You know, sometimes when you're back there, you may try to do too much at times if you're not sure about the guy next to you, if he's going to be where he's supposed to be. So I think trust is a big thing for those 4 guys, and then playing with great eye discipline and playing with good technique. And then obviously when the ball's in the air and you get an opportunity, you got to maximize those opportunities and make those plays. And we've been able to do that thus far. So that's been big for us. And I think, we've been able to move the quarterback off his spot at times with some pressures, or maybe with our front 4, our down 3. So I think it's just been a combination of things. But when you got 11 interceptions, it's not just the defensive backs. There's got to be some D-line pressure or edge pressure, middle pressure, whatever it is. So, the combination of those 2 things, I think, has really been helpful.
Paul, you guys were 2-5 at this same point last year, heading into that Page game against a pretty similar schedule. I realize every team has personnel changes from year to year, but is there anything that surprised you about this 7-0 start, or is this exactly where you guys were hoping or expecting to be?
I don't know if expected is the right word. I was definitely hopeful. I think coming into this year that we all knew that Nolensville would have a talented roster and have a lot of guys that could have the potential to play at the next level. But like I tell our team, the best teams are not always the most talented. It has to be a true team, and the closest teams, those are the ones that have always been that I've been around have been the most special. And I just felt if we could be as talented as we were, and if we could combine that and come together as a team, that we'd have a chance to be pretty good. And here we are at 7-0, and each week we've gotten better. And then that Columbia week win over them, I just felt like that was the first time you could kind of feel it, that things were starting to gel, and guys were starting to play for one another and be excited for one another and encourage one another when things weren't going well. So I don't know if expected to be 7-0 was the right word, but I'm definitely hopeful and definitely thought we had the potential to do it.
Yeah, you just look at a team's trajectory here with Nolensville, the 2-5 start, and then kind of working its way up to playing the state runner-up very closely. The trajectory's been there, Paul. But when you look at Page and how its quarterback Colin Hurd has really kept that offense soaring, how do you think, based on what you've watched, how's this Page group maybe different from the one last year?
I think they're a little more balanced. I think, Jake McNamara was obviously a very unique type of player, extremely good quarterback. And, the Hurd kid's coming in and he's a little bit different, but he can still throw it. He can still extend plays with his legs when he drops back. But, I think they may be a little more physical this year on both sides of the ball. I think their front 7 on defense is really, really good. And I think their offensive line is really, really good and really, really nasty in the run game. So I think the line of scrimmage is an area that I think they may be better in. They can still pitch and catch it. Seems like their receivers catch everything that's thrown to them. And then, you got to be mindful of the quarterback. He can, similar to Jake last year, when he pulls it down, he does a good job keeping his eyes down the field. So I think Page, they're going to kind of do what they do, but they're very good at it. And if anything, I think maybe they're just a little more run-oriented because of the physicality.
You've been at Nolensville from the beginning there in 2016, first as an assistant to Will Hester and a couple of years later as the head coach. And in that time, Nolensville's put together 5 playoff appearances, a couple of semifinal bursts. You've got a special season brewing now. And, of course, I was at that homecoming game a couple of weeks ago, and the crowd was incredible. I think I parked about a mile away just because there were so many people there. Paul, what do you just make of the early success that you guys have had, not only on the field, but just kind of building up the program as a whole there at Nolensville?
Oh, I think we got good kids, number one. We've got kids that work hard. We got kids that want to be successful, and they're willing to do the things that you have to do to be successful. And then I think number 2, I have a phenomenal assistant coaching staff, all very knowledgeable, all great men, number one, and really good football coaches, and they really care about kids, and they really believe in building relationships and investing in kids. And then, we got great support from our administration and our community. Nolensville's a special place. It still has a kind of a small town feel to it when you go to the game on Friday night. And, I think just a combination of those things has really put us in a good position to have success early on. And then once you start to have success, you kind of start to create some standards and expectations, and that kind of makes you strive each year to meet or exceed those expectations. So I think a combination of things, but mainly, we got good kids, we got good support, and we got really good coaches.
Yeah, community support obviously so vital to a high school football program, and Nolensville is one of the fastest growing communities around. Paul, the enrollment at last check and in the fall enrollment report this year was 1,454 students. As things kind of progress this way, do you think you guys have to think about what you can do to prepare for a potential move to Class 6A?
I think that's coming at some point. The later the better. 5A's been good so far. I think having Page in our region has been special. And we don't really haven't had like a Williamson County rival, kind of like every other school in the county does. So having them and being in 5A with them and having them in the same region has been fun. But yeah, I don't think there's any doubt that as we continue to grow, I think even maybe at some point, even Page or maybe every school except Fairview might end up being 6A. I'm not sure what Centennial's numbers are. I think they're going to be close, but I think we may make it this time and stay in 5A, but maybe next go around we might make that jump.
There's certainly a big 5A battle coming this week with Nolensville and Page. Should be a great game. And Paul, best of luck in that game, and we appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule this week to be with us here.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys having us on, and looking forward to Friday night, and go Knights.
All right, and that has been Nolensville coach Paul Derrick. Good stuff there from Coach Derrick. His team, like we said, is having a great season, 7-0, and Page is 7-0 too. So somebody's going to have to lose, and but they very well could see each other again at some point in the playoffs like they did last year.
Yeah, and great point by Paul. That region's balanced. It's worked out well. That's what you want.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break and then come back with some takeaways from Week 7.
It was just a few drinks. I'm good.
I thought it was good.
After every game, we always have a few. It's no big deal. It was no big deal.
Hey, I can hold my liquor. I thought I could hold my liquor.
All right, we are back to talk about some of the observations we had last week and just some overall thoughts too here on football season as we've passed the midway point. We are now in October, and this is when the games get really good. Playoff implications all over the place. Tyler, give me some thoughts. What are some things that maybe stood out to you last week and here as we're heading into Week 8 as well?
Yeah, well, I was at Cane Ridge Smyrna, which you mentioned the big region matchups, and that was certainly one that was going to have kind of one domino in that region with Cane Ridge winning. But going back to Smyrna, Arion Carter, the Smyrna linebacker, whose recruitment has really just erupted here in the last couple months. Offers from Alabama, Tennessee, Southern Cal have all come in for him. Alabama and Tennessee were in to see him last week, and that was my first time to see him, and I could not have been more impressed. I mean, he's the real deal. Numbers aside, I mean, I know you want to have good numbers, and he's a factor on defense, but just as far as looking the part, I mean, he looks every bit of an SEC player. He's just so well put together, and the way he runs downhill, it's like you just you ask the question, like, how did it take this long for him to break onto the scene? And I guess he just didn't go to a whole lot of the camps, and the camps really are a big deal. But my takeaway from that was he is a real player. We're going to hear that name in the future at some lucky school. I mean, he's committed to Memphis, but those Power 5 schools are going to make their hardest run at him. So really impressed with him. Kind of outside of my coverage realm, but I thought it was really cool that Clarksville picked up a 56-36 win over Hendersonville, a big upset in Sumner County. Clarksville's now second in that region, but program wise, that's a big win for that program. You love to see signature wins come out, of a program against a really good, another really good program. Last thing, what about the games last week? Henry County 29-28 in overtime at Springfield, FRA 39-38 at CPA, Brentwood 24-23 over Indy. So many good games. Billy, I know you're around. Tell the Father Ryan Knox Catholic game. I mean, that's too far for us to go, but a 1-point finish there, obviously not in favor of your alma mater.
No.
But what happened?
Well, it was crazy. I told Russell late Friday night, Father Ryan takes the lead with 29 seconds left by 6. They fumbled the extra point, and they squib kick. Obviously, there's always controversy. Do you kick it deep? Do you squib it? And Father Ryan ended up squibbing it. I think Knox Catholic got it at the 37-yard line, and they completed a few big pass plays and scored with 1 second left. And there's a lot of coverage out there. Mike Wilson, I think, who covers Tennessee for the Knoxville News Sentinel, he was there, had a great video of that catch, and it was just a great throw and catch. I mean, you got to give credit to Knox Catholic, but great game between a couple of Irish teams, Catholic Irish teams.
Yeah, well, you love to see it, man. I mean, that's what these games are all about. Sometimes the best games are kind of right in the heart of the region schedule, so that's a lot of fun. I just wish I had been at one of them. So that was kind of what I saw. Russell, what about you?
Yeah, you always hope that you can be at one of those 1-point games. It doesn't always work out that way. And that was the voice of our producer, Billy Derrick, for anybody that was wondering who that voice from above was. But that's Billy. And, Tyler, I think a big piece of news that I saw late in the night when I was in our, editing stories and looking at some stuff in our system, I saw that Chris Parson did not play for Ravenwood. And sure enough, he's injured, got a leg injury. He's out for an undisclosed amount of time. And we already had a top quarterback out in Kenny Minchie at Pope Prep dealing with a shoulder injury. He's now missed 3 games. His team has not been the same without him at all. Ravenwood was still fortunate to get a pretty big win over Summit. They ran the ball a lot with Cartua Chapman at quarterback and Carter Pace at running back. But you've got to wonder I hope we have not seen the last of these guys in their high school uniforms. I really hope that we haven't, and these are short-term injuries and they can get back. But, I'm sure the conversations with their parents and the trainers, the coaches have got to be, you're wanting to win now for your high school team, which is, a noble thing, but these guys have big futures ahead of them. And you just wonder, is there a risk of re-injury? Is it worth it to try to trot back out there for some late season games, maybe some playoff games when you've got as bright of a future as those guys have? And Pope Prep and Ravenwood are actually supposed to play on October 21st. So that would be a really fun quarterback matchup if both were there, but unfortunately not sure if that's going to be able to happen.
Yeah, it's I think caution's got to be the number one word there, Russell. You hit it on the head.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at some undefeated teams, there are still plenty of them out there. Tyler, I don't know about you, but looking at Lipscomb Academy and Oakland's schedule, it seems like they're pretty safe bets to run the table, to go 10-0 in the regular season at least. But NBA and East Nashville, I think, have a chance to do it as well. NBA might have a little bit taller of a task. They've still got to beat Innsworth and then Baylor the next 2 weeks. So that will not be easy, but they have been rolling right along, as we're going to talk about in our picks in just a moment. And East Nashville has a couple of region games, and then Riverdale, who has struggled quite a bit in recent weeks. So if they can handle those 3 teams, they're looking at a 10-0 season after going 6-4 last year. So that's a huge step up for East Nashville if that were to happen.
Yeah, and then at that point, if East Nashville is undefeated going in the 3A playoffs, I don't know why you can't just call them the favorite at that point. I mean, obviously Alcoa has really ruled that classification, but why not? If you're looking at results, that's what we're supposed to look at. Yeah. And, it's not really about what you've done in the last 13 to 16 years. It's kind of about the team you've got now. So I would think that'd be fair.
And they've seen Alcoa once now last year, so that maybe any jitters of seeing just a powerhouse team like that are going to be worn off if they get a chance again. So hope that can maybe happen there in the Blue Cross Bowl, but we'll see. Still a long way to go. And last one on the way out here, Tyler. Looks like Overton's probably the only challenger to Cane Ridge in that region, 6-6A. Cane Ridge looking really good. They've handled pretty much all their region opponents, Smyrna and McGavick as well. So if they can get a win against Overton on Thursday, that's going to basically give them the league title. But I'm going to say don't count out Overton. They've won 5 games in a row. Great turnaround now in the second year under Coach Arcente Broom, a longtime veteran in the Metro schools coaching ranks. And of course, Overton had some lean years before his arrival last season, but they are re-energized over there. I was at the Overton win over McGavick last Friday. Great crowd, homecoming. Just seems like they're pretty fired up about their football over there at Overton. So we'll see if they can keep it rolling here with a big one against Cane Ridge.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
All right, we're going to come back with our picks in just a moment. But first, another quick break.
It's just a few cocktails at happy hour.
It was just a few cocktails at happy hour.
You really good try. There aren't any cops around. I didn't think there were any cops around.
I drink and drive all the time.
Sir, you've been in a serious crash. I need you to hang on, okay? Run your name, sir. Where you are right now?
Let's talk week 8 games of the week. I have struggled in my picks the last couple of weeks. Tyler, I think 6-4 2 weeks in a row, and my lead in the Main Street Prep staff-wide pick'em is slipping. I think you're catching up a little bit. Some other guys are catching up, so hoping to get on track here. Let's start it off with that Overton at Cane Ridge game we were just talking about a few moments ago. That's a big one to probably decide the league title there. And like I mentioned, Overton, they're looking good. They've won 5 in a row with quarterback Ryder Hagan leading the way. They've got a running back in Javon Edmondson that can finish games like he did last week with nearly 250 yards, most of which came in the second half. And on the outside, we got a big threat in Memphis commitment Tyson Edwards. So this is going to be a test for Cane Ridge, but I think just program-wise of what we've kind of seen for both of them, Cane Ridge has got it together this year, and they're rolling right now. So it was a tight game last year. I think this is another game that will probably be decided in the fourth quarter, but I'm going to go Cane Ridge 35, Overton 27.
Yeah, I got a real similar score. I've got Cane Ridge 34, Overton 28. I just think, I haven't seen Overton, so I can't really speak to where they're at as far as the kind of the crescendo of their season, but I've seen Cane Ridge 4 times, and I think last week I think they are starting to peak at the right time defensively, and Eddie Woods is really impressed with quarterback Siobhan Abdullah and kind of his maturity, where that's gone. They've got Reggie Goodlow back at running back, so I like the Ravens.
Yeah, it's good group of skill position players there. Next up, how about another Metro team here taking on Marshall County? It's Pearl Cone with the home game there on Thursday. We haven't heard much from the Firebirds in a while, but they've kind of been quietly just destroying some of their opponents. They took losses early in the season to NBA and Cane Ridge, but since then it's been a clean slate for them.
Yeah, good little chance to sort of, after you play a couple larger schools, to just sort of back build and go back, and you get a good gauge of where your team's at, but you really do you don't have as much time to maybe work when you're playing those big schools. I mean, you could probably teach a lot more during a game, maybe against somebody else. Maybe Tony Bernetti would think otherwise. We'd have to ask him. But Pearl Cone scored 77 on Glencliff last week. I know Glencliff's down, but it's almost 80 points. Sure looks like the offense is kind of coming around a little bit at Pearl. I like Pearl to win this one 28-24, but I think it's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I've got Pearl Cone taking it 24-10, but certainly it's nice to have that one at home and not have an hour-plus bus ride down to Marshall County. So I think that'll help them, and we'll give them the inside track there to that league title.
Yeah. Let me look at Page Nolensville here next, Russell. I mean, obviously, we just we covered a lot of it with Coach Derrick, but Kobe Walton, as good as he's playing, Nolensville's in high gear. I think the point was kind of made that when Nolensville almost beat the state runner-up last year at the right time in the postseason, so they've just really been climbing at this great rate ever since then, and really ever since that 2-5 start last season. Something just tells me Page is going to win a close game here, though, because they have a knack for doing that for the last couple of years. I think Colin Hurd's getting it done. Big comeback last week against Columbia. I like Page 35, Nolensville 32.
Well, I'm going to go against history a little bit here. Nolensville's never beaten Page in their 4 or 5 meetings that they've had, including the 2 big ones last year that came down to the wire. This would be a great time to break that streak, and I think it's going to be a close one, like you said, but I've got Nolensville taking this one 32-31. I think it'll come down to an extra point or 2-point conversion at some point late in the game. And
so we're both betting on chaos, it looks like here.
Should be hopefully a good one for the TV crowd that's going to be there and watching.
Well, it's shaping up like that. Sometimes we beat that drum all week and then it changes. But I really think these are two pretty evenly matched teams. I thought Paul made a great point about staying in 5A, whether or not that 5A looks pretty balanced, at least that region, which is what you want to see, because obviously we have some classifications that are a little upside down.
Yeah, once you get into 6A, it is an absolute gauntlet to get to the Blue Cross Bowl, no doubt. Speaking of a gauntlet, how about a big Division II AAA game here, NBA at Innsworth. Obviously a great rivalry, being that Innsworth was pretty much born out of NBA's existence, kind of the new kid on the block now. It's been 20 years, but still. This has been a good rivalry game for quite a while. And, Innsworth, they've had a great season. I believe only one loss to Baylor. But this is probably the toughest defense they've played all year. So I'll be interested to see how they hold up against that NBA front and secondary and Marcel Reed and everything else that the Big Red can throw at you. But with all that said, I like NBA 35-21. I would not be surprised, though, if this one ends up being a little closer than we're expecting.
Okay. I've got NBA 45-24. I've been impressed with them. I don't think I'll pick against them the rest of the year unless something happen, unless we're looking at injuries or some personnel changes there. But it's just a super complete team. I like Claiborne Richards to have a big night. The receiver, he and Marcel Reed have such a good chemistry. I think those two are going to put up big numbers this week, and the Big Red kind of continue to roll on here.
It seems like NBA, Lipscomb, Oakland, they've all been good for some wins in our pick'em. So we're going back to the well there, and hopefully it'll deliver for us.
Right.
Anyways, we appreciate everybody joining us today. I want to remind everyone once again that this podcast is sponsored by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Fans don't let fans drive drunk. And be sure to stay tuned to MainStreetPreps.com all week. We're going to have state golf coverage. We're going to have football coverage. Volleyball and soccer are getting their postseason started, so a lot to keep up with. And be sure to visit the site. And we'll see you back here next time on Main Street Preps this week.